Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the From the Sideline podcast with Francis
and Peter. And today we have our first episode in a very long time. We're sorry to all the viewers. We just been dealing with the we had finals and then we had the start of spring sports, which took up a lot of our time. But we're back and here to stay, hopefully. Although we won't be able to get an episode in next week due to spring break. But the agenda for today: first, we're going to be discussing NFL free agency, which we didn't get a touch on since we haven't had an episode in so long. And then we're going to move to March Madness and talk about if it's the most exciting event in all of sports. And then finally, we're going to cap it off with some MLB, obviously opening day starting up. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you listen all the way through. Listen to our other episodes and follow the podcast. Let's get right into it.
All right, guys. So first off, we're going to be diving into our two biggest winners and losers of free agency. We can do teams or for a specific player, but my two are teams. First off, number one, easily the Atlanta Falcons. Adding Kirk Cousins at quarterback over Desmond Ridder, just the biggest upgrade. It's going to allow their offense to take that step up. And then the sneaky little signing in Darnell Mooney for only 3 years, $39 million. That's a sneaky deal, and he has really high upside, as we've all seen with his just like really nice route running ability. He's just a great, well-rounded receiver. And in Atlanta, with all those weapons around him, maybe he could find his place there and really thrive. So the potential for this Falcons move is just off the charts. Kirk is a great quarterback. People don't like to give him credit, but man, he can sling it. He's very accurate, and the guys in the locker room seem to like him. So they did give him a lot of money, but as we all know, the NFL salary cap has been moved up this year, so it's not as bad as people are making it out to be. And yeah, so the Falcons are clearing away, to me, the biggest winner. And then second, the second biggest winner of free agency, I have the Texans with just a great season last year. C.J. Stroud literally went like the best it possibly could with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, both winning the Rookie of the Years at their respective unit sides of the ball. And then adding Danielle Hunter for only 2 years, $48 million, a very low risk, high reward value. We've all seen how great of an edge rusher he is, and he could really be the X factor of that team that could put him over the hump. And then Joe Mixon for the offense. Dameon Pierce has just been atrocious. It has not worked out. He has like 3.0 yards per carry or something. And Joe Mixon's isn't like his yards per carry. He's not the biggest yards per carry guy, but he's just a beast, and he breaks a bunch of tackles, and he's going to complement that Texans offense so well. And then one of the sneaky little signings, Azeez Al-Shahir, the linebacker from Tennessee, for 3 years, only $34 million. That's going to bolster the defense really well. And just adding some linebacker help, I think they lost Cashman, but it's still Al-Shahir is an upgrade over him, and it's just another solid player to add to that defensive unit. So the Texans just really improved all around, especially defensively this offseason.
Okay, I have one winner and one loser. So my winner is going to be the Chicago Bears. Just the decision to get rid of Justin Fields, I think, was the right one to make. And when you have the first overall pick and you have possibly three generational talent quarterbacks in the draft coming up this year, you can't really afford to trade down or, take Marvin Harrison Jr. with the first overall pick. I see some fans thinking that that's the route they should have taken and staying with Justin Fields, but Justin Fields was not getting it done. He was serviceable, kind of, but, he wasn't producing wins. He wasn't producing playoff appearances. So Justin Fields was not the answer for the future for the Bears, as much as I liked him. I would even liked him to see him on the Seahawks, but, the Bears, he was not the answer for the Bears, and definitely trading him away was the best move to make. Actually, I have another winner, Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. More for Saquon Barkley to get out of that Giants situation, and the Giants got rid of his cap space and his contract, and the Giants did pretty good in free agency, but they're still not going to be that good with Daniel Jones under center. But Saquon Barkley moving to the Eagles, one of the best offenses in the NFL, and the Eagles getting Saquon Barkley, making them possibly the best offense in the NFL. Yeah, they lost Jason Kelce, but they still have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, the best wide receiver duo in the league. And then they add Saquon Barkley. They really need some run help. They weren't really doing too much in the run game. So Saquon Barkley really helps their team out a lot. My loser, though, is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. We freed up so much cap space, and we produced about, I think, $40-something million in cap space. We released Quandre, Jamal Adams. We got rid of a lot of guys, Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson, and it just... I expected us to make big moves from it, and we just were not aggressive at all in the free agents market. We really needed to go after a good interior offensive lineman and a linebacker, outside linebacker, or middle linebacker, and even some safeties, defensive line help, all of those. But we really just made some mediocre moves. We got 2 decent linebackers in Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker, but no, that doesn't really fill in the void of Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks. So I don't know how I feel about those moves. Like, they'll be serviceable, I guess. The safety is not really much of a problem to me because we still have Julian Love, Kobe Bryant to fill in at safety maybe, and still possibility to draft a safety in one of the later rounds this year. But interior offensive linemen and defensive line are really the biggest needs for us. And in the trenches, interior offensive line, I just don't think the void is going to be able to filled in the draft. You know, the amount of talent in this year's draft in the interior offensive lineman is just pretty scarce, and I don't think we should go for interior offensive lineman in the first round. And if we don't go for one first round, then we're just going to have a big gap at offensive guard and center. It'd be fine taking Jackson Powers-Johnson or Taliesin Fuaga, but I think linebacker and defensive line is much bigger need. So Geno Smith really cannot produce when he's pressured, and if we don't have good interior offensive linemen, then the offense just won't work.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with pretty much everything Francis said about the Seahawks. But going back to his take about the Chicago Bears, I disagree. I don't think they're a winner. I think they made the right decision in trading away Justin Fields, but they waited the market way too long and only got a conditional 6th-round pick out of him, which is just not the return you're expecting. Most people were thinking maybe a 3rd or maybe even a 2nd. So they waited the market too long, and then by that time, most teams had already signed quarterbacks, and no one really had the need for him. Like the Seahawks traded for Sam Howell, and then the Falcons obviously signed Kirk Cousins. And then also, I know this isn't free agency, but retaining Matt Eberflus when you're introducing Caleb Williams, Matt Eberflus is just straight up not a good coach. He's not an offensive guru at all. He's a defensive-minded coach who hasn't even had a good defense. So I just do not see the point of keeping him at all. I think it's way better to get a fresh start. But, I mean, I do agree that they made the right decision keeping or in stick of going with Caleb and over Fields. So I wouldn't say they're a loser, but I would definitely not say they're a winner because they did not get the right return for Fields, and they kept their coach who has not shown anything whatsoever in his 2 years of being there.
And then I already kind of touched up on the Seahawks free agency market, but Peter also wants to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it a little more. So, yeah, John Schneider, really, I trust in him. He always shows that he's one of the best GMs in the NFL, if not the best GM. The past 2 drafts were absolutely amazing, S-tier drafts, but this free agency, I don't know. I mean, he might be cooking something, but I don't think he was aggressive enough at all, in the slightest. I mean, there was a lot of great interior offensive lineman talent in the free agency market this year. And you know what? We could have splurged and, used a lot of our money, offered somebody a really big contract, and I would have been fine with that because we have a lot of cap space open right now. But he just wasn't aggressive enough, and all the good talent just went to the other teams, and the only interior offensive linemen available now are just mediocre talent, and at that point, why would you even get them? And the linebackers he did okay with, but like I said, they're all just mediocre. And then so our front 7 next year, and then our offensive line, I don't know what's gonna happen, but John Schneider really needs to do something about this, and then hopefully, new head coach Mike McDonald can bolster up our defense a little bit, possibly bring in some new talent, and just get the scheme down, and just really help our defense succeed. I was really looking forward to a lot of rumors, Patrick Queen coming to Seattle with Mike McDonald, but it never happened. It was almost confirmed going to happen, and then it just didn't happen. So, I was really disappointed in that. You have any thoughts about that, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, they just did not do enough whatsoever. I mean, I usually try and trust in John Schneider it seems like he makes the moves in the long run. And it is not over yet, as we've seen. There's been so many draft day trades that have happened. Like the most recent one I can think of is the A.J. Brown trade. So there's still a lot that can be done, but it is very disappointing because they didn't really make any splash whatsoever. I like some of the minor signings they had, like the two linebackers, Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson, who was Dodson actually was the highest graded PFF linebacker this past year. So I think that was a good signing for them, but overall just not enough at all. Didn't address the holes, and I mean they didn't really extend anyone either. So just not doing a whole lot, and it felt kind of weird. Like you would think a team would, the season they hire a new head coach, they would go out and make a splash in free agency and maybe hire some people that, or acquire some people that have had relationships with the head coach, like Patrick Queen, for example. So they didn't do that, which was really weird to me, and yeah, just kind of a disappointing offseason so far.
Okay, now that we've covered all of, or as much as the NFL free agency as we could, we're going to move on to March Madness and how electric it is. This year is having a little bit of a, I wouldn't say down year, but I mean, it kind of is a down year, and, it's not as exciting as years in the past, but, March Madness is still March Madness, and the question of the day is March Madness the most exciting thing in sports? I'm going to start us off here and say, short answer, no, but it's really up there. It's really close. I would put March Madness over all of the NBA playoffs, including the NBA Finals. After the bubble, I would say, or because of the bubble and after is when the NBA Finals really started to have a decline. I feel like viewership wasn't as high, emotions weren't as high, and there wasn't a lot of fan viewership and passion as much as when it was LeBron versus the Warriors and stuff like that. And now it's just Jokic and the Nuggets won the finals last year, but I mean there wasn't really a lot of uproar about it. But March Madness is just always exciting because it's high stakes. You lose one game, you're out, and low seed teams can make a run. And we see NC State 11 seed in the Final Four this year. March Madness is one of the most exciting things in sports. People bet on it, and people get passionate about it, and some underrated players show their true colors, and it hires a lot of people's draft stocks. It's really exciting, but I would say the most exciting thing in sports is the World Cup because, soccer is the most watched sport in the world, and the World Cup, people are really proud of their nationality and their country, and they really want to prove themselves. And, if your country does well in the World Cup, it just brings a lot of pride to you. And people are very passionate about the World Cup. Some people's whole lives are about watching soccer, and it's the thing they're most passionate about. People cry and rage if their team loses, or you saw Argentina fans, their first World Cup with Messi, and Messi's probably his final World Cup. So it's very passionate, and it happens every 4 years, so it's even higher stakes. And it's you lose one game, you're out. That's how it is in soccer always. And a lot of the games come down to penalties if it's tied, and it's just super exciting. It's basically March Madness, but with a higher viewership, higher emotions, higher passion, and then higher stakes because it's every 4 years, like the Olympics. But what's your thoughts, Peter?
Actually, I have to agree there. I think the American sports need something like the World Cup where teams or fans are so invested in it that their whole lives revolve around it pretty much. I know we're kind of getting there with college football, but none of really the professional sports. And it's kind of sad to see because all of the rivalries and all of, the hatred between teams, it's kind of gone away, especially one clear example I'm thinking of is just the NBA with the just involvement of super teams and players joining each other and switching up. It's just you can't really, there's no such thing as a franchise player anymore because players are always moving teams. And I know it's the best financial decision for them usually, but it does kind of suck to see that the passion for the sport through the fans has kind of gone away. So I think there's something the NFL can do about it, or there's something the players can do about it, or the NFL maybe to incentivize players to sticking with their teams. And I think if you do that, then there will be some drama that will keep going on. Like I'm already seeing a little with Debo and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So I like that kind of stuff, but the intensity is just nowhere near the World Cup, and especially with March Madness. Like, it's awesome. It's super fun for the viewer to watch, but the intensity is just not there.
Yeah, and also, people, the things that people are most passionate about when it comes to sports is their country. And so, when you see the Olympics and your country succeeds, you're more happy about that. And then when in the World Cup, if your country succeeds, that's why also the Ryder Cup in golf is super intense and super it's just USA versus Europe. So you can have things in common with other people in your country and root for your country, and you show your pride and show your nationality, and it's just exciting. And so people can really flock to that. And if there was more marketing like that and just professional sports that don't relate to your country, because not actual sports like NFL, NBA, MLB, it actually relates to your city. So it's virtually almost the same thing, just not because you're not as passionate about your city as you are about your country. So, but if they did more marketing like that, and I feel like the marketing has been down for, especially the NBA. The NBA does a really bad job with their marketing, and you don't really the average sports watcher. Basketball is 80 or 82 games long, 82 game long season, and so just the casual fan can get really bored. The MLB season is 162 games, but the marketing of the MLB is actually so good, and baseball fans are really passionate. But basketball fans is, I feel like American NBA fans is a smaller margin, so they really need to do a better job marketing. Because I don't see as much basketball stuff on my social media as I do football or baseball, but they need to do more marketing to for fan viewership and rally the troops of the fan bases more like March Madness and the World Cup.
So diving into our final topic, Major League Baseball, one of my favorite sports personally, just a huge Mariners fan in general. So I wanted to start off with the Mariners, and then we can sort of move to our predictions. So Francis and I will go back and forth talking about the Mariners, and then we'll give our predictions for the outcome of the season. So for the Mariners, throughout the first couple games, what I've seen is kind of what to be expected. Castillo having a slow start per usual in his first game, and then Kirby looking absolutely brilliant. But they haven't been able to score runs. Julio hasn't gotten hot yet, and they really need that if they want to make a run, if they want to even make the playoffs, because we're in that such stacked division. So they really need to step it up in the offense department. They have a lot of good guys. They don't have enough star power, I'd say, besides Julio. So France needs to get back to 2022 form. Haniger has looked great all year. He's looked like that guy that we had in 2022, 2021 when he's healthy. So if he can just stay healthy and provide those runs for us, that's going to make a huge difference, since we didn't have him last year, and it definitely showed because we didn't have that extra outfielder, and we didn't have that bat. We had Teoscar Hernandez, who disappointed, if we're being completely honest. So hopefully Haniger can outperform Hernandez, and hopefully the free agency signings such as Rayleigh and Garver, hopefully Rayleigh can provide a nice bat off the bench, and then Garver had a great year last year, so we just need him to keep it up. But in order for the Mariners to succeed, they need to maintain the pitching. They're pretty top heavy, but they need to make sure that Miller and Wu are still, maybe giving you like a 4 ERA or below that, because you can't let those games slip away from you when you're not pitching your best players. In the Mariners, rotation is pretty obviously their biggest strength. So if that rotation continues to be elite, and the offense is the rest of the offense besides Julio is just serviceable and gets more than one run per game, I think it'll be pretty good. What about you, Francis?
Yeah, for sure, Peter. I was expecting the Mariners to make more of a splash in the free agency market in the offseason, and I was a little disappointed in what we did. Baseball is such a big market organization, and the league is just favored to big city teams like the Dodgers. I mean, they have over $1 billion in contract, signed Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto to like combine just them two, like $700 million or something.
No, Ohtani was 700. It's $1 billion.
It's $1 billion for just the two of them. Like, that's crazy. The Mariners have, I don't even know what percent of that, but a tiny percent. And so,
just wanted to interject and said that this is the sad reality of baseball. There's no salary cap and there's no salary floor, so it's always going to be uneven. So, I mean, just that pretty much. It's disappointing how teams like the Dodgers can pretty much buy their way to constant. Dodgers and Yankees can pretty much buy their way to constant success in the futures, and teams in smaller markets are just stuck and can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely need to put a salary cap on in the MLB.
Also.
Yeah, and a floor, because, like the A's, like, if you're not generating any money at all, like, you can't just be stuck with that amount of money. You need to have a certain amount as a floor and a certain amount as a ceiling. You cannot be spending $1 billion in contracts. That's just absolutely crazy. But the Mariners, I expected them to make more of a splash. We actually do have a decent amount of money compared to some other small organizations. So I was expecting us to make more signings, but you know what? I'm content with what we did, and I think this roster is good enough for us to win 90-plus games and make it to the playoffs. But our pitching, our starting rotation is actually, it was rated the best in the MLB, and I totally agree. We have an insanely good rotation. Castillo, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby. Those three are already three of the best pitchers in the AL. George Kirby is going to be a superstar one day. And when the addition of Brian Wu, Emerson Hancock, Bobby Miller, that rotation right there is absolutely insane. We can just filter them out. That's a good start in every single game. Get us at least, nobody on that rotation should have higher than a 4.55 ERA. And then our bullpen, it's a little worse than the 2 years in the past, but we still have Munoz. We still have a lot of guys. We signed Ryan Stanek from the Astros, a great closer. But, just our starting lineup, it's just pretty lackluster. Jorge Polanco, I think, was an amazing signing. Mitch Haniger, getting him back was great. And like Peter said, Luke Raley and Mitch Garver, those were decent signings. But we definitely needed to make more of a splash, because like Canzone or Raley in left field is just not going to really cut it. And then like Luis Urias starting, it's just pretty bad. But I think Julio Rodriguez really needs to step up, because he started off really slow last year, and that's kind of what lost us a lot of games. Jared Kelenic was really hot for us, and he's just kind of like a guy, just like has random spurts of greatness and then just is absolutely terrible. So we can't rely on guys like that on our team. We need guys to be consistent. Julio needs to be consistent if he wants to be an MVP winner, future MVP winner, or this year. And if he wants to be, the absolute rock on our team, the core of our team. Like, he already is, but he needs to be more consistent. J.P. Crawford was great for us last year. He needs to keep up that same intensity and that same consistency. And, Mitch Haniger, I know he's a little bit of a veteran, but he needs to come back to how he was in the form that he was when he was on the Mariners. So, Mitch Haniger, all those guys need to step it up. Ty France, I expect big things from everybody. The pitching is going to be great, we know that, but we need to give them some run support. So, we really should have signed a big bat, and like losing Eugenio Suarez is just not acceptable. We should not have lost him. That was the worst. We should not have lost. He's easily top 10 third baseman in the MLB, and he was one of our hardest hitting bats on the team, and he was a great fielder as well. And we got Luis Urias instead of him. So, the boys are going to have to do a little better than what they're doing right now. We're currently 3-2. Game's starting pretty soon. We need to win over 90 games for sure. We need to make the playoffs this year. So now we're going to go into our World Series winners. Peter, do you want to start us off?
So my prediction for the World Series matchup, at least, is the Atlanta Braves from the NL facing the New York Yankees from the AL. As much as it pains me to say, the Yankees have looked super good this year, and the MLB is not going to let them stay missing the playoffs, because they just have such a huge market and such a huge fan base. And to probably your guys' shock, I do not have the Dodgers making the World Series. They do this every year, guys. They lose the big games. It doesn't matter how much money they send. Injuries happen. Their rotation isn't looking great right now because they have Buehler, Kershaw injured, Dustin May injured. So I think the Braves just out-mature them, and they have Acuna, the best player in baseball, argue with the wall. And I think it's going to happen in the NLCS, NLCS probably 6 games. I don't even think it's going to go 7. The Dodgers choke every year. It's plain and simple. I need to see it in a non-Mickey Mouse season to actually, I need to see them dominate teams in the postseason, and I haven't seen that at all. So I'm just going to stick with the Braves. They've proven that they win World Series. They can win a World Series, and yeah. And then on the Yankees side, the Mariners, they need a big season from Julio to make a run in the playoffs. They need an MVP season and then probably a Cy Young season from Kirby. And those are both 2 very real possibilities. But I think the Yankees with Soto, he's just looked great. I think it's going to be Soto MVP year. I mean, his patience in the batter's box, his ability to get on base is just it's so beautiful to watch as a viewer, just to see how good his eye is, and that'll get him far. And I think, as we've all seen, he performs in the playoffs, with the Nationals. So I think he's going to become a Yankee legend, and they're going to make the World Series. But ultimately, they will fall to the Atlanta Braves in 6 games. I think it could go 7. The Yankees look really good this year. But, yeah, that's my prediction. My dark horse prediction for the 2024 season is going to be the Philadelphia Phillies. I know they've been into the World Series very recently, but I just think people are counting him out. Bryce Harper is him. He's one of the most clutch players in baseball. And then Zach Wheeler, their rotation is good, and they have a lot of guys that can play up to their potential. Trey Turner has been playing up to his potential, and I think if it all comes together, they're going to make a late postseason run, as they always tend to do. So, yeah, that's my dark horse prediction. But it could very well also be the Mariners. I'd like to argue that, but I don't want to sound biased, and we've already talked about them a bunch.
Okay, so now moving on to my World Series picks. So in the AL, I'm going to have the Baltimore Orioles making it out, and in the NL, I'm going to have the Dodgers. If the Dodgers don't make the World Series, it might be the most disappointing, embarrassing thing of all of sports. I mean, like I said, they had over $1 billion in contracts spent. So, I mean, if they don't make the World Series with the amount of talent they have, the amount of money they spent, I don't even know what to say at that point. And then the Orioles out of the AL signed Corbin Burns. He won the Cy Young, right? Yeah. Former Cy Young winner. The Milwaukee Brewers ace. They traded for Corbin Burns, and the consistency they were at last year was such a young roster. Cedric Mullins is really their leader on the team.
What?
Yeah, he's been on the team for a long time. A lot of the other guys are younger.
He had a really down year last year.
Yeah, he did have a down year last year. The year before that, he was really good, and he's starting off at a good start this year. Adley Rutschman is going to be their star, their franchise guy. And they have 3 back-to-back number 1 overall prospects. Gunnar Henderson from last year and then Jackson Holiday this year. Jackson Holiday looked electric in spring training. Gunnar Henderson has been looking to have a better year this year. And, this team is just getting better and better. It's exactly what I wanted the Mariners to do. But, they signed Corbin Burns. They have a decent pitching rotation. Good, really good relievers, Felix Bautista and Cano. And then also, like I said, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Cedric Mullins. And then there's some also underrated guys on their team. So I expect them to come out of the AL. And then my dark horse team would have to be, hear me out, either the Padres or the Giants, I think, could easily win the World Series. Not easily, but I think they could win the World Series. The Padres, mostly because kind of a bias, and I'm just pushing for them because I love the Padres. Tatis, he got suspended, but, it's okay. He's back. Machado, one of the most hated players in the MLB, but I actually really like him. His swing is incredible. One of the great players in our generation. Tatis, one of the best players in the MLB. Ha-Seong Kim, my fellow Korean guy. And then, just to have they lost Blake Snell, but they still have a really good rotation. Blake Musgrove had a no-hitter last year, or was it 2 years ago? I'm not sure. But, the Padres are a really fun team to watch, and probably my second favorite team in the MLB. And they're a really solid team, and they always get really unlucky in the postseason and with injuries and stuff. So I'm pushing for them. And then the Giants, they signed Blake Snell, last year's Cy Young winner. One of the best starters in the league right now. The Giants are always just consistent with it, and they're always up there. They won the World Series back in 2014 or something like that. But the Giants, they lost Mitch Haniger, but he wasn't really doing too much to produce for the team and was dealing with a lot of injuries last year. They just have a solid lineup, and their coaching and the way they're able to, their team chemistry is always just able to pull out wins year after year. And I could see them making a dark horse run in the postseason and making it to World Series and winning it. So that's gonna wrap up this episode from the sideline. It's been a while, over a month, almost 2 months, but we're back. There wasn't a lot of news, and we also didn't have a lot of time. We're both really busy with spring sports and all that. And, MLB season just on the come up right now. March Madness is about to end. And, wait, can we get a little prediction on who do you think is going to win the March Madness?
I really hope it's NC State, but I think you got to go with UConn here.
Yeah, it has to be UConn, but I'm going to say, No, I'm going to say Purdue. Purdue, just they were number one seeds last year as well, and they just were super lackluster. So they're gonna bring it back this year, and they're gonna win it all. UConn, if they win this year, that's just the easiest cakewalk of a run of all time. They're just so dominant; it'd be just so boring and such a down year for March Madness. But that's gonna wrap up this episode. March Madness ending, MLB season starting, and then NBA playoffs starting soon. So we're going to get into that next episodes and mock drafts probably next episode, because the draft is coming up in like 2 or 3 weeks. So thank you for listening all the way through. Make sure you listen to our other episodes and follow. Thank you. Bye.